move your chair around so you're comfortable and have a good view, and you know, whatever. You know, if you need to get up and stretch, do so. If you need to go for a little walk, do so. Especially if you need to use the bathroom, please do so when you need to. That way we'll avoid big long lines when we take breaks. There'll be lots of breaks and everything, so it'll be very relaxed and low key.
Bathrooms are downstairs. Tea's out here.
Yeah, there's tea, maybe coffee, lots of snacks. You know, drink and be merry. Just enjoy yourself. So we're here to explore the great matter of the yoga of radiant presence. Let's not worry about what that means for a while. There's people here I've been working with for years. There's people here that I've never spoken with before, and everything in between. So what we will do is be with this very fundamentally and very basically. Now that's actually not a limitation at all, because there's nothing whatsoever to this but what is fundamental and basic. It's not like there's a basis and then there's elaboration that builds on that. The basic fact is the powerful fact. The basic fact, the simple actuality, the simple condition that this is here is all that matters. So to return to basics, to return to fundamentals, is the totality of elaboration and includes everything in it, which is very convenient. So it makes it very easy to present, except that it's impossible to present. It would be easy to present if it wasn't impossible to present, but hey, we'll just, you know, ignore that and skip over it for a while. So what this is about getting real. It's about what's actually going on here. What's real? What's for real? What is objective reality? And how does it work? You know, how do I fit into it? What's up with that? Just the whole shooting match of what are the implications of this? Now, the very unfortunate, in my opinion, arbitrarily, the very unfortunate fact is that, by and large, humans have the answer to the question of what is real, what's going on here, completely and totally wrong. Absolutely inaccurate, absolutely not containing accurate information and accurate reflection of what's actually occurring here. Which is fine. I mean, we managed to muddle through if you consider the world situation in this pathetic culture we live in, and so on and so forth. Fine. But it turns out that it is possible to discover, it is impossible to settle into what the actual condition is, what your actual condition is, what's actually going on here, much more directly. And the implications of that and the side effects of that turn out to be profound in a really good way, in a really cool way. Basically, human thought, what we're used to thinking is going on, what we're used to thinking about things, is all inaccurate, completely inaccurate, 100% inaccurate. Let's see. That's kind of what do I say next?
That was good. Let's break for lunch.
So here is your experience, right? Your experience is present. This is more or less clearly obvious, right? Your experience is present. And you may be used to thinking of Well, yeah, my experience is present, my body is present, my history is present, the world is present, society is present, the solar system is present, the galaxy is present, history is present, just all of this stuff we're used to thinking of as we kind of think of ourselves. I mean, I'm just, fantasizing here, but I'm speculating that most people think something along these lines, think of ourselves as this little being that's embedded in this vast play of history and this incredibly huge galaxies and solar systems and stuff, although I suspect most people don't think about that part of it too much, much more concerned about the immediacy of social connections and friends and money and things like that. All of these conditions that we imagine make up our world, make up our life. You have your health, you have your success, you have your friends, you have your challenges and your problems, you have the difficulties you're trying to overcome. You have health, you're trying to enjoy yourself while not getting arrested, or all these various complex parameters. And typically, I imagine people may imagine themselves as sort of a game player or a game piece in this vastly complex game structure of all of these circumstances that have to be navigated and negotiated with and challenged and denied and manipulated and lied to, and all these various games that need to be played in order to find a little satisfaction and avoid a little discomfort or frustration and so on and so forth. And of course, all of these things are held to be absolutely real, absolutely true, absolutely just objectively there. Well, yeah, I have a body, there's a world, there's the past, there's the future, there's all these people, there's, society, there's all of these conditions that have to be negotiated, that have to be fit into. So I'm imagining that this is a fairly typical human worldview. Most people more or less feel like something along those lines is what's actually happening here. And they think all this stuff is objectively true. It's there, it's like that. And if someone told you it wasn't like that, you go, you're nuts. Good luck, you're whacked out. The surprising fact is all of that stuff that people think of as concrete, people think of as objectively true, are completely abstractions that only exist in their imagination. All of it, every single bit of it. And the abstractions are projected upon and generated from the fact of their experiential field, the presence of the experiential field, the presence of your experiential field. When you were born, what was going on? It was just, wow! You don't know you have a body, you don't know there's a world, you don't know there's time, you don't know there's past and future, you don't know there's other beings, you don't know anything. It's just this blast of information, of experiential qualities, color and sound and sensation and thought and emotion and just all of these flavors showing up in the experiential field. Just a complete sea of that. You didn't know there was any other beings because there weren't. There's you. There's all these weird colors and shapes and stuff showing up, but it's all showing up to you in your experiential field. That never changed, right? That's still what's happening. That's all that is happening. And, but typically people don't acknowledge that. People don't think like that. Typically people think in terms of, well, no, there's these other people and there's, these circumstances and there's this and there's that, which are all abstracted. They're basically hypotheses based on information which seems to be present in your experiential field. So you look around you and you see all these shapes, and these shapes are somewhat similar, and they're somewhat what you may think of as human-shaped shapes. And so, oh, okay, these shapes, so maybe these are actual human beings that are actually somehow there, and I'm experiencing them. And so you see these shapes, and you have a hypothesis that maybe that's a human being. But you don't, do you? Typically, that is a human being. There is someone there, to be aware of the actual fact that these are hypotheses. Maybe you're asleep and dreaming. Maybe there's no one there and it just looks like a human being. I mean, when you were dreaming last night, you were probably talking to people and interacting with people in your dreams. Where are they now? Where were they then? You know, when they're appearing, they seem to be there, and their appearances, they're certainly appearances, and they're full of all sorts of qualities and characteristics and, you know, information, incredibly information-dense presentation, right? All this information. But they're just patterns of energy appearing in your experiential field, right? When you dream, that's all that's happening. It's just these patterns of energy appearing. And you wake up and, of course, poof, they're gone. And you know, you look back on it and there was never anyone there. It was a dream, you know? But now this is the waking world. This is real. You know, this is really here. Everyone's really here. I'm really here. All this stuff is really happening. What happens when you go to sleep at night? Poof, it's gone, right? I mean, it's just utterly gone. It's just not there. If you suppose you went to sleep and you never woke up, where would the world be as far as you know? The world you dreamed about last night, as far as you know. I mean, what's the difference? What's the difference? So the point isn't that there is no world. The point isn't that things are or aren't a certain way. The point is that it's unknown. It's unknown. The only fact is the presence of your experiential field. That's the sole fact. And you are the sole inhabitant of that field. You're the sole, you're the only one home. There's no one else, right? I mean, how many people, how many individuals, how many sentiences are seeing your experiential field? Just one, right? You're seeing it. You may have the theory that, oh, maybe there's other people out there and they're seeing experiential fields too. I mean, this is typical. Most people probably think along those lines. But that's a theory, it's a hypothesis. How can you know? You can't have direct experience of anything other than the presence of your experiential field. So what is objectively true? What is undeniably the case? You know, how can you separate fact from possibility? How can you separate undeniable objective actuality from possibility, from hypothesis, from maybe it's like this and maybe it's like that, but those are just sort of sophisticated ideas. They're theories. But what's not a theory? Well, that this is present is not a theory, right? That your experiential field is, whatever that means and however that is happening, is just a self-evident, self-verifying fact, right? Experience is happening. Otherwise, I mean, how did you get here? how is here? So your experiential field is present. And calling it experiential field is more sort of mystical bullshit. What does experiential field mean? It just, you know, this that is actuality. And it's also self-evident, probably, I'm imagining, assuming you exist at all, which I can't know. It's also self-evident that there's all sorts of flavors, experiential characteristics, experiential qualities appearing within your experiential field, right? And of course, this is the basis for the common hypotheses about all this stuff and all these circumstances that are supposedly actually happening. So your experiential field is here and now. In fact, it's the definition of here and now. Here means your experiential field, and now means your experiential field, because your experiential field is never then, it's always now. It's eternally now. It has no time. It's just always exactly the same. It's always right, exactly, precisely now. And it's always exactly, precisely here, right? I mean, you get in a car and you drive away, The experiential field doesn't go anywhere. The whole world shifts through your field of apparition, but you're not going anywhere. You're always right here, and it's always right now, right? And all of these qualities sort of seem to appear and disappear and morph, and all of this, everything we're familiar with is all of this incredible dense information that seems to be present within the NASD experiential field. So, your experiential field is, okay? What else can we say is certainly undeniably true, self-verifyingly true?
Certain things about what it feels like.
Hmm?
You can get into details on what this feels like right now.
Well, okay, it is as it is in the instant. Let's say that. So that kind of comes with. So, I mean, when I say your experiential field is, it is, and it is as it is, as it's always information dense. It's always information rich. I mean, even if you're sound asleep in deep sleep, and there's, from the waking point of view, there's nothing going on at all. It's not really nothing, is it? It may be subtle, and it may be weird, and it may be amorphous, but it's not nothing. It's still, the field is always full. It may be full of just, weird flickers, or, I mean, God knows what. We can't, from the waking condition, it's difficult to recollect or imagine the state, the apparitional condition of the deep sleep state. But it's not like nothing. It's not like it, reality ceases to exist and then it starts to exist again when you start dreaming or you wake up, does it? I mean, it's some kind of a subtle, weird, who knows what. I mean, we can't even put words on it because it's not really very accessible from the waking condition, which we seem to be largely inhabiting as a moment.
And it's always changing, it seems.
Yeah, it's always changing. So it's absolutely unstable. That it is absolutely stable and absolutely constant. And the information that seems to be presenting is absolutely unstable and absolutely inconstant. The information that presents is also infinite. There's how much information is present in your experiential field. How much? How many colors are you seeing right now? How much thought is present in your mind right now? How much sensation is present in your field of touch right now? How much sound is present in your field of hearing? You can be in an absolutely quiet room and still your field of hearing is completely full, just subtle, wind moving or little, buzzes in your ears or who knows what, right? Now, when we abstract it, we qualify, we count, I'm hearing that sound, I'm hearing the sound of a bird, and I'm hearing the sound of the refrigerator, and I'm hearing this, and so I'm hearing 3 sounds. Really? I mean, the out of this incredible, inconceivable density of information, we abstract that as we reduce it down to something simpler. Now, this points out a really essential principle, is that all abstraction that we are also familiar with doing, whether or not we're aware we're doing it as abstraction, is an oversimplification. So the experiential field is literally an infinite barrage of absolutely unstable, never repeating information, just inconceivable data present in the instant, and it's already something else, and it's already something else, and it's already something else forever. That's just what it is. That's what the present looks like. And but the mind, the imagination, whatever, abstracts this into, I'm in a room and there's people and there's flowers and there's a cup and so this sort of almost becomes, the narration reduces this infinity, this absolute instability into relatively finite elements of, there's 24 people in this room and there's, 8 cushions and there's, so you can sort of make a list of what you think is present and you can kind of seem to get to the bottom of that list. Well, that's about everything, And it's all kind of like that, and it was like that a minute ago, and it's like that now. And it's going to be probably like that in 5 minutes. I don't know. You know, someone might throw a pillow out the window or something, and there's one less pillow. I can check that off the list. But all of that takes this inconceivable information density and reduces it down to these relatively simple, stupid elements. I mean, stupid with relation to the incredible richness of the real-time actuality, the real-time information that's present. And this abstraction also creates stability. And this is a pillow, you know? Still a pillow, hasn't changed. Even though your experience of it is absolutely unique in every instant. You could spend an hour staring at this pillow and you would not have the same experience twice in 2 instances. It wouldn't happen because experience is continually morphing and shifting in every way, grossly, subtly. You know, you experience flickers in your eyes, you experience the thoughts are coming and going, and emotions and feelings and moods and vibes. And I mean, there's this absolute dynamism, absolute instability, and absolute uniqueness of each momentary energy configuration. It's exactly the way it is right now, and it's gone forever now. It's never going to come again exactly that way. That exact experiential pattern of information is never going to happen again. It's already different, eternally. So it's eternal newness, eternal freshness, eternal unpredictability, absolute instability. But, oh, you know, it's just a cushion sitting on the floor, like, I'm bored now. So this mechanism of abstraction sort of dumbs things down. It simplifies, it stupefies. It turns infinity into, you know, seemingly countable, stable entities that are just sort of lifelessly sitting there and not really changing. And they're just a certain way, and I kind of know what way they are. And once I know it, I can kind of check them off the list. Oh, I know what this is. You know, it's a stupid pillow, and you know, not, you know, it's kind of little the worse for the wear, and I wouldn't want it in my house. You know, and so right away you take this absolute spontaneous, you know, ever fresh, inconceivable infinity, and reduce it to boring dullness. And even if I didn't, this is an exquisite pillow. This is like the Zen perfection of pillow-dom. You know, I want this pillow. In fact, I'm going to swipe it, you know, and take it home with me, just so I can appreciate its incredible, you know, just perfection as a pillow. But it's even that, you know, positive or negative, is taking something that is itself so absolutely uncapturable, so absolutely instantaneous and fresh and spontaneous and completely, utterly, intrinsically inconstant, and turning it into a thing that is a certain way, basically lifelessly sitting there objectively, as opposed to, you know, where is this pillow? Oh, it's just sitting on the floor in this, you know, this sort of rundown schoolroom, church room, as opposed to this is a presence of inconceivable, absolutely dynamic, spontaneous energies appearing within my field of experience, within my consciousness, and nowhere else. I can't find it anywhere else. Where is this pillow? It's in me. Where are you all? You're in me. Where is this room? It's in me. It's in my experience. You can't find it anywhere else. It is an actual presence of, call it experiential characteristics or experiential energies. I mean, you know, just making up words here. Because it's not a word, is it? This isn't a word, what's here. It's actuality. And it can't be reduced to words accurately. You know, you can reduce it to words, but that's not what it is. That's just like putting a label on it, like putting a URL on it. And if you then assume it is the label, you're cutting yourself off from the actuality, the dynamism of it, and the, you know, all the open-endedness that is actually here, that you actually are. So what are you in all this? Well, what's here? Your experiential field is here. Right? Is there anything else here? Can't find it. If you found it, it would be something appearing in your experiential field, which is, how do you work with that? Oh, I'm my body. Okay, cool. So yeah, my body's appearing in my experiential field. And my field of vision is sort of fuzzy-edged ovoid that's sort of sitting around here. There's my legs appearing and my hands. I can kind of see a little bit of my nose. Can't see my hair, right? I can see your noses and your hairs, and so on and so forth, right? So where is this body? It's appearing in this case in my field of vision, just like your bodies are appearing in my field of vision, what I call your bodies. Okay. Is there anything else appearing in the field of vision? Well, a whole lot of things that I might not call my body. This wonderful or horrible cushion, the room, the paint, the trees, the sky. Obviously you can start listing apparent entities that are present. And, well, is the body more or less present than the cushion? I close my eyes, the cushion disappears instantly and the body disappears instantly. I open my eyes, the cushion appears instantly and the body appears instantly. So the body is no more primal in the visual field. The body is no more primal than this cushion is, or no less for that matter, and so on and so forth. Anyway, we'll get into all this stuff a lot more. This is just sort of a general overview. So, in other words, to sort of look at it more broadly, can you actually isolate any separate sub-elements definitively that exist along with or within the objective, concrete presence of your experiential field? And the answer is, as you may find if you look into it, no. So what are you? You are the presence of your experiential field. And all these qualities appear and disappear within it, with absolute dynamism and absolute spontaneity. Everything does itself. You're not putting things here. You're not putting light in your field of vision. What's there is just there. We're used to thinking, oh, I'm thinking. Really, do you put your thoughts there? Do you think about what thought you're going to think before you think it? It's like, I think in 30 seconds, I will be thinking about, this wonderful cushion or whatever. Is that really how it works? Is that really how the field of thought works? Or is it just kind of like the field of vision where there's just weird shit there, right? All of this, everything you're seeing is just happens to be there just exactly the way it is, uncontrived. You didn't put it there. You can't make it go away. You can close your eyes, but even that, like you close your eyes, you say, oh no, I'm closing my eyes. Okay, so you see they're open, I'm gonna close them. See, I can do that. I have magic powers, I can close my eyes. But if I look at that, if I look at that closely, when I close my eyes, do I decide I'm gonna close my eyes before I close them? Do I decide I'm going to decide to close my eyes before I close them? In other words, is it completely deliberate that the whole eye closing thing is entirely within my control and being executed, deliberately, consciously, I'm doing it? Or is it the case that at some point the idea pops into, the mind apparently of, gosh, I think I'll use closing the eyes as an example of this in this discussion. Not in all those circumlocutions, but just in the instant. It's like, oh, okay, closing my eyes, cool. So if you look at even your participation, even your deliberate behaviors, if you look at it closely, you'll find it originates from a point of spontaneity. It originates from a point of nothing being there, and then suddenly something is there, spontaneously and strangely. You don't decide to have an idea before you have it. And if you did, you didn't decide to have the idea before you had it. Sooner or later, if you look back at that actual apparent functioning, You arrive at something just pops into your head, some idea, some motivation, I think I'll have a drink of water. I decided to have a drink of water. I reached for it, I picked up the water. But if I look very closely at that, at some point there's some mysterious sense of thirst or sense of desire or who knows what, right? You can't qualify. Just something emerges, appears within experience that seems to manifest as this apparent chain of behavior, right? But in every case, if you look at it, you end up ultimately with mystery. It doesn't resolve into any precision. It doesn't resolve into any deliberate control or deliberate manipulation. And anything that seems like that ultimately appears spontaneously before it seems like it. And even before, starts getting very slippery because it's always right now. And I can say, well, I'm saying these words, and I said the words I said before to say these words because I'm saying a sentence which is kind of semi-coherent, I can pretend, right? But I'm actually only making the exact sound I'm making in the instant when I'm making it. So what's up with that? How does that happen? And I'm damned if I know. I mean, it's just endless weirdness. So back to our basic thesis, back to the basic point. Your experiential field is, and that's the sole fact. Try and find another fact that doesn't reduce to just an imagined aspect of that, or an abstracted aspect of that. And where does the experiential field come from? Was it ever not? I mean, we can imagine, oh, well, before I was born, it wasn't, I didn't have. Really? Do you know that? I mean, does it have a beginning? Does it have an end? It simply is, there's a lot I can't remember. Okay, so memory may be present or not, right? Wakefulness may be present or not. Relative degrees of coherence may be present or not. But the presence of experiential field, does that actually come and go? Does that actually wax and wane? So anyway, this is just an overview and a rough sketch. So your experiential field exists. It alone exists. Nothing else whatsoever exists. As far as you know, it's an indeterminate bubble floating in indeterminate whatever. And that's what reality is. That's what the universe is. Well, that's kind of interesting. People are used to thinking, no, but I'm this struggling primate stuck in the sorry, challenging conditions of my life and in this pathetic, dysfunctional world and, this and that and past and future in my life and all this stuff. Okay, cool. But all of that is a very inaccurate, very heavy-handed subclassification of the fact that my experiential field is. And that's the sole fact. That's the only thing that is actually undeniably and self-verifyingly true. It's objectively true. Now, I can't say what that means. What does objectively true mean? Because again, where would you look to investigate that? Well, I'd be looking at my experiential field because there's nowhere else to look. And so, and of course, when I look in the experiential field, what do I find? Oh, God, just who knows? Just all of this inconceivable information density, all of this stuff, all of this colors and sounds and vibes and textures and moods and thoughts and memory and fantasy, just all of these absolutely dynamic energy presences, information presences. I mean, who knows what that all of this content, all this seeming content consists of. But here it is. And it's just this one thing of my presence. So presence is a given. Regardless of worrying about, well, what do you mean by presence? What is presence? Let's define presence. Let's investigate. It's like, you can't. It's just, that's the given. The given is that being is, right? Reality is present. My experiential field is present. And it's never empty. It's never naked. It always shows up as an inconceivable information density of inconceivable, uncategorizable experiential characteristic energies, flavors, color, sound, moods, all of this, inconceivable barrage of qualities that, as we've talked about, have absolute spontaneity, absolute dynamism, absolute unrepeatability, so on and so forth.
The reference to my experiential field, I'm just wondering about the my part.
Exactly. Good point.
Can we say my? I don't know.
You can say anything you want.
Or we can say there is the field.
I'm saying, well, it's complicated.
Yeah.
See, I'm pretending I'm talking to you, and I'm assuming that you exist, but may or may not be the case. I might be dreaming, or I might be a crazy person locked in a rubber room somewhere, and I'm hallucinating everything. And I could not possibly tell the difference. How could I? There's no objective touchstone. So when I say my experiential field, that's the fact. When I say your experiential field, that's an assumption that assuming you actually exist, then your sole fact is the same fact. And I'm just using a my and your in this case because of the very strange condition that even though I alone exist and even though you alone exist, you're there and I'm here.
Well, what I wonder is if the tendency to use my, like speaking for myself, my experiential field, is, this is a little heavy-handed, but sort of proof that there is this stability. And because of the stability, there is the other side of it, the total changing instability panoply of stuff.
Well, there can seem to be, but you can't actually isolate any stability. You can't actually find any stability that is stability.
Right. But just the tendency to say my sort of solidify something.
Sure, but that applies across the board. The tendency to say anything tends to reify it, tends to like a kind of a hypnotic suggestion that it is something.
Sort of brings it into form.
Yeah, I talk about this pillow. All of a sudden, the pillow sort of becomes an actual pillow, as opposed to.
That's a very proud pillow.
I know this pillow's special here. This pillow is like the star of the show. You say the pillow, and all of a sudden, it's like a hypnotic suggestion that makes the pillow into something, makes it a pillow and makes it relevant and makes it important. It separates the pillow from all non-pillowness that is also present in the field and so on. But in actuality, it isn't. The pillow is not a pillow. It's just it's an arbitrary sub-aspect of the continuum of my visual field, and it's not. It's only theoretically divisible. I imagine I can draw a line around the pillow and say everything within this line is pillow and everything outside that line is non-pillow. But if I look very closely, I can't really draw a line because the edges are fuzzy. Oh, geez, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I look closer, and I get into even more. I look closer. I have to get a microscope. I look even closer. I have to get physicists in here to look closer, and they look and they find. Even when I'm looking really close, it's still fuzzy. In fact, it gets fuzzier the closer I look. We have the simplistic Newtonian mindset of, well, the objective world is really here and it's made of matter and matter is just sitting there. It's stuff, and it kind of, has some dynamism and it moves a little bit, but it's basically just sort of sitting there inertly. And then, you ask a modern physicist, who's looked into this very closely and with enormous resources of investigative tools and technology and so on, and if you ask a physicist what is matter, you'll get an answer that sounds like, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? It doesn't really have location. It doesn't really have temporality. It's not even actually locatable. It's a sort of a numerical
Statistical.
the statistical presence within a probability field, which includes the totality of reality. It's like, what? I just want to know where the damn pillow is. And the physicists will say, there is no pillow. And well, Buddhist too, Buddhist physicists, but and this is just modern science. In 1,000 years, if humans don't destroy themselves, which will be miraculous, scientists will look back on the point of view of present-day physicists and say, God, these people, they're like the same way we look at flat earthers, or something like that. It's like, God, these people were so primitive. They were so completely and utterly wrong. And I mean, God knows what they'll think matter is. And then another 10,000 years, scientists then will look back on those physicists and just see them like we see cavemen, putting their palm prints on a cave or on a cave wall or something. So what is matter? Well, matter is unresolvable. You can't know what it is. It's here. Because here is what we got. Here is what there is. Is there anything that's not here? You have to imagine something that's not here, and where do you do the imagining? Here. You have to imagine sometime it's not now, and when do you do the imagining? Now. Well, yesterday I had such and such for lunch, and I went and saw a movie, and it's all like, okay, where's the movie I saw yesterday? It's a memory that's occurring in my experience now. So I can't find anything that's not now and here. The movie I saw yesterday is now and here. My entire life, my entire childhood, where is it? Can I find it? Where would I look? I would look now and here. So I can pretend I'm looking at my life. I can pretend I'm looking at history. I can pretend I'm looking at like the countless, millions of years since the Big Bang. But all of that is a fantasy that's occurring here and now in the experiential field, the soul experiential field, mine. And maybe if you exist, yours. So now the point is not that it's actually like that. The point is to show how utterly inaccurate normal human worldviews are. The simplistic, well, here I am, I'm embedded in my life, and I'm this little person in a big world, and so on and so forth. That is a hypothesis, a very elaborate hypothesis drawn on the basis of the one fact, which is the presence of this experiential field, and that the nature of this fact is utterly unlike the nature of the hypothesis drawn from it. A world, I'm 63, so almost some years old, and I've done all this incredible stuff and have all this history and all these things, and project the past and project the future, all of this elaboration, and I've lived in New York, I've lived in Florida, I've lived in Canada, I'm this and blah. I mean, just you know how it is. It's a whole curriculum vitae. I mean, Jesus, this is we're talking a lot of stuff here, right? I mean, none of us are spring chickens, so you've been around the block. There's a lot. Oh, sorry, with the exception of all the ladies, of course, and some of the men. So, but all of this elaboration is a hypothetical, an imaginary projection and derivation based on the sole fact of this that is here now, this experiential field. So that's really interesting. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it's very interesting. And it turns out to be more than just interesting. It turns out to be useful and powerful. Because, and this is where we get into what I'm calling the yoga of radiant presence. This fact, obviously has a vastly different sort of intrinsic implication than what's normally held to be fact, i.e., objective reality, the world's really here, it's big, it's huge, I'm little and small, I'm vulnerable, I have my history, I have my limitations, I'm a neurotic person and a bit of a jerk, and I'm fumbling through my life and blah, 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 just the whole story, the whole curriculum vitae. And that has an implication, has a feeling to it. It feels like something. It feels like, oh yeah, you're right, same old, God. Another day, another dollar, whatever, right? And so what's that feel like, right? As contrasted with what's it feel like, just this, here, now. This presence of miraculously, ungraspably, unanalyzably appearing infinite, instantaneous, spontaneous information in a miraculous, inconceivable hypersentience. Do they feel different? Do they have different implications? Does it have a different sort of a feeling tone? And which one is true and which one is total fantasy? But wait a minute, what are you suggesting? No one thinks like this. This is, it's nuts, it's cuckoo. It's like, yeah, that sounds like a nice thought experiment, but come on, get real. Okay, check it out for yourself. See what is actually going on here and what is a hypothetical extrapolation within which what's actually going on. And just because a hypothetical interpretation exists in your imagination, it doesn't make it anything more than a hypothetical interpretation which exists in your imagination. Whereas, what is this that is here? It's not a thought. It's not a hypothesis, right? The presence of the reality of your experiencing is undeniably actual. It is actual. I mean, it's what we mean by when we say real. If I asked you, are the pink elephants that are getting out of the spaceship in that corner of the room real? You would say, are they actual? You would say, you might say, no. Why? Because I don't experience them. They aren't present in my experiential field. Whereas if I asked, is this pillow actual? You might say, yeah, because it's present within my experiential field. So presence within the experiential field is the intuitive criterion of reality, of actuality. Are we really here? Yeah, we're really here because I experience it. Are we really, flying through the air, through the atmosphere of Mars, 1,000 miles away from each other? No, not really. Why? Because that information or information like that is very difficult and baroque to try and extrapolate from the information that's present in my experiential field. So intuitively, we always go to the presence of the experiential field as the touchstone of what is actual. So that's all what we're already doing. Why not just take it all away? If the experiential field is what's real, then let's look at the experiential field. And that starts to get very slippery. That starts to get very, very slippery. How do you look at the experiential field? Well, it's easy to look at. You can't look at anything else. But what is it you're looking at? It's like, this is kind of, a way to try to distance ourselves from this challenge is, how do you look at a dream when you're dreaming? Well, the dream is the dream, but it doesn't seem like a dream. You're in the dream. And so where is the dreaming when you're dreaming? Well, the dreaming is the dream. Okay, cool, but how do you look at it? Because what you're looking at is the events and circumstances and, seeming activities and so on in the dream. But that is the dream. And yet the dream is not that. The dream is not some whole that's made up of the pieces that appear in the dream. They aren't even there. The dream is the fact that they seem to be there. And how do you find that fact? Well, you can't lose it, right? That fact is the fact. It's right here. But it's not really obvious. It's not really approachable by process. It's not approachable by sequence. It's not approachable by, well, let me look at this and let me look at that and let me figure out this and let me analyze that. How do you analyze what is experience? You know, well, here it is. How do you analyze that? How do you get a handle on that? It's very slippery, right? It's very strange. Experience is very strange. All of human thought is designed to deal with these abstractions, to deal with things that are a certain way, that are this or that are good or bad, that are red or black, that are loud or soft, that are, naughty or nice, that are whatever, right? I mean, pick, get the dictionary and run down the words in the dictionary and all of these contrasting conditions, and they all refer to the same thing. They all refer to experience. So experience is that which is bright and dark and existent and non-existent and good and evil. And so you can't reduce it to anything you can get a handle on, can you? And yet here it is, right? You can't make it go away. I mean, try and stop your experiencing. Try and shut it down. Try and turn it off. Let's take a pause. I'm gonna hit the off switch and stop experiencing for a minute, right? You can't do it. It's doing itself, and everything is being done because it's doing itself. And that is doing itself looks like everything being done, to the extent there's an everything in the being done. So how do you look at experience? Well, experience is always looking at itself. That's what this is, right? Your experience is looking at itself. What is looking at your experience right now? Well, I am. Yeah, try and find this I that's looking at your experience. What is it? Where is it? Is it over here somehow, like looking over there? It's just this is here, is the looking. The presence of vision is looking at vision. You can't find a seer and you can't find a seen. It's not like this light is over here and some seer is over here and there's some mystical relationship between the two where the seer is seen. It's just, this is here. Vision is. And in this vision is, reality, as you could say, seems to be looking at itself, seems to be engaged with itself, seems to be studying itself. Like in a dream, you might say that consciousness is exploring itself. Consciousness is intimately engaged with itself. What is seen in the dream is consciousness, let's say. What is being seen is consciousness. It's nothing else. It's not coming from anywhere else. And the way it's being seen is self-consciousness. It's not like the dream is over here somewhere and the consciousness is over here and they're somehow, viewing each other at a distance, right? It's bang. It's right. It's one absolute engagement. So reality is intimately engaged with itself, which accounts for your experience. You could say God's looking at God. Why not? I mean, what else is it? Can you reduce it to something simple or logical? Or what's the logic of being? What's the logic of why there's experience? What's the logic of intelligence? It's just bang. It's just here. It's let there be light. So calling it a miracle is not appealing to romance or appealing to extravagance or grandiosity. It's simply an observation of it's completely and utterly unexplainable. It's completely and utterly after the fact, trying to get a handle on it. It is, in the Torah, in the Old Testament, and so on. When Moses asks God his name, or when God tells Moses his name, whatever, he says the name is I am that I am. Bang! I am that I am. Well, duh. I mean, try and not be. Try and shut it off. Try and this is, and that is the fact, and that fact is not rational. It's not explainable. It's not derivable. It's not supportable by analysis of physicists. I mean, that fact fact is the prime fact. It's in fact the only fact. And all of this other information, all of this, theory and hypothesis about what's happening and how it's happening is just derived from the apparent nature of this fact, and it doesn't include the nature of this fact accurately. I'm getting tired of talking.
Can I ask a question? So this exploration, which one seems to do automatically,
Yeah,
of both the sensorial experiences
sure.
and the mental experiences,
Sure.
the going off on memories and imaginations
Sure.
of all sorts. They're all equally valid, I would say.
Well,
Wouldn't they be?
there's not. Is there a real basis for saying that they're all?
Well, in other words,
We draw a basis between sensory and mental.
no, I think they should all be on the same footing. If you
Well,
will.
is there a should? I mean, is there any basis for them to be some different footing?
I don't see one, and I guess that's
Me
my point.
neither. I mean, there is, let's call it experiential characteristics or flavors or energy or information. I mean, you can throw all sorts of words at it. Present, and it is present.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, we've finally gotten to what I mean by radiant presence. This is present, and it always shows up with an inconceivable barrage of infinite apparent information.
It's almost like a distraction force.
Sure,
It's like
It's-
a constant distraction.
absolutely. It's
And I think
it's drowning in it's drowning in its own inconceivable infinite hyperabundance of information that is unresolvable. The information can't be like resolved down into some coherence or simplicity or something.
It seems like there's a tendency to get all wrapped up in it. That's what 99.999% of people do. They get all
Sure.
wrapped up in it. And if I'm getting this right, the difference would be to explore, but don't get all wrapped up in it.
Well, it's not in it. I mean, what you're talking about is of the essence. It is intrinsically wrapped up in itself. It cannot be not wrapped up in itself because there's nothing else that's what its being is being wrapped up in itself. But what Yoga Radiant Presence is about being with that fact that it's wrapped up in itself as that fact,
Right.
not as all of this absurd, elaborate hypothesis of, oh, no, my name's Peter Brown and I was born in 1950 and I'm this and I'm that and I'm,
Right.
It's all of which are hypothetical, oversimplified, imaginary hypotheses about what is occurring in this fact. And what's actually occurring in this fact cannot be resolved accurately, period. So in other words, the fact never becomes more than itself. The fact of this, call it information presence, that your experiential field consists of, is that as that. And trying to reduce it to anything at all is it departs from it. It doesn't actually depart from it. It's weirder than that. It reduces itself in imagination inaccurately to an oversimplified fantasy without actually touching the fullness that is present. But the implication of allowing yourself to sort of hypnotically relate to your life in terms of these abstractions is the nature of all these abstractions is that they're oversimplifications. They're dumbing it down. They're stupefying it. And so you create a stupid, dumb life for yourself and don't allow yourself to notice the incredible, astounding spontaneity and vitality and infinity that actuality intrinsically inalienably is. So the point is to let yourself be with what it really is as it really is.
Just noticing.
Yeah, noticing. Why not? Hey, great name. I should have used that.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I experienced. As I notice, I attune and I re-choose through my will.
I'm sorry, you do what?
I attune within myself
Right,
into the experiential
Sure.
space within
right,
with my conscious awareness,
uh-huh,
and I choose
uh-huh,
from my beingness, my experience, to
Right.
set my dial on something that feels more spacious or feels more heartful, which I enjoy.
right,
I attune to joy,
right.
and I feel that I detach from all that rap.
From all the what?
The rap.
Rap.
Yeah, all that, old
Okay.
past stuff, chaos in the world. And, I feel in my experience, there is an experience of attunement, my wisdom, and a joy, a love that I enjoy.
Nice.
And that
Is there
comes
any-
from will.
It comes from will.
Yes, and it comes from
Where
attunement.
does will come from?
It comes from that experiential that isness within myself. It's
Okay.
a part of this experience. We have an ability that we have that I have. I'm going to speak for myself, that I can come into. Well, especially when you're meditating, it's a place of power. I
Right.
also have power. I
Are
have
there any places of non-power?
only in unconsciousness.
Is-
No, I disagree. There's no place of non-power.
Good.
It does not exist.
Good. Very
If
good.
we-
I agree with you. It sounds like a good technique. I approve completely. I wouldn't put it in those terms, as you'll see, but I agree with you completely.
Can I ask a question?
Of course you can.
To try and understand my own experience of non-experience. I'm getting exhausted, let me say that.
No,
My
I hear
brain
you.
is
I'm
having a hard
exhausted.
time. My brain, which is not really a brain, is having a hard time like digesting all this stuff because it's like not stuff. So
Yeah.
what is it when I am like sitting here having an experience, like there's somebody that I felt like I already had this experience with,
Uh-huh.
but I've never known or seen that person. So it's my mom. Like what part of me is making me have that experience? And is it even an experience? See, that's why I'm confusing myself, because I'm trying to listen to you and say to myself that nothing is anything, but yet I'm having an experience like I've already had this experience. And I know it's all mine, but it seems like it had to be somewhere else for me to have, for me to have it.
I'm not sure I follow what
Yeah,
you're
I can't even
saying.
follow myself, so I don't,
Okay.
I can
Well-
certainly understand why you
Well,
can't follow.
yeah, okay, well, let me
Well, I'm
Okay.
semi
Yeah.
lost,
okay, good.
but I
Well,
understand
this
what
is
you're
good.
saying.
This is good. Let me talk a little bit about this, and we'll see if what I say meets you at all, or just is more being lost. First of all, lostness is all there is. I'm not saying anything that you're supposed to find and make sense of. I'm saying that finding is impossible and making sense of is impossible. We pretend it's possible. We pretend we have a handle on things. We pretend this is this and that's that, but we're making it all up. It's all bullshit. It's all spin doctoring. And basically, the only fact is this. And what? Okay, given that, then what? Well, there's no then. And so what happens? Well, we sit around and we're confused and we're thinking about things and we talk about things and we make sounds at each other and everything, whatever happens, and it looks like what it looks like, but it's never anything other than this, which makes absolutely no sense, and yet is obviously real. I mean, it's just real as real. There's no other real. This is it, right? And yeah, it's confusing as hell. It makes no sense.
So while you were talking, I went right away to my work.
Uh-huh.
And in my work, I'm a counselor.
Sure.
So, and in a high school.
Uh-huh.
So I have a student right now can barely live a minute in her own life.
Right.
So therefore she shows up in my office constantly.
Yeah.
She can't be in a class and she can't be here and she can't be there. And I am trying to help her, but now I feel like all my help is bullshit. I'm trying to listen to that. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to help her feel okay to be in her own skin and just breathe and live and not freak out every minute and not feel like she can't feel her hands and she can't feel her feet. I'm trying to help her, but now I feel like, oh my God, well, what am I really doing? Maybe I'm screwing her up more than I'm
Well,
helping her because all my own crap is trying to help her.
Well, maybe it is.
You
Maybe
know.
it is, but so what? That doesn't negate it. Just because it's all out of control doesn't make it nothing. Doesn't mean you can't help her. Or maybe you help her and screw her up at the same time, like everyone does to everyone else. I mean, this is real life, you know.
Thank God I'm retiring from that. It's freaking exhausting worrying about whether I'm doing it or not.
Oh my God! And yet, you have certain. I assume you have a certain participation. You have a certain skill. You have a certain experience of doing this and having some sense of connecting or some sense of it being something.
Mhm.
And even if it doesn't make any sense and you can't get a handle on it, that doesn't negate it. You know, just because it's not what we think it is doesn't make it nothing. It's not like it gets erased or it's all gibberish, so it's all gibberish. It's not all gibberish. It's everything. It's not nothing. It's everything. And so, yeah, it's, you know, there's skill, there's functionality, there's all this stuff, and there's confusion, and it's all on 10. You know, it's all present. You know, it's, you know, I mean, it's you know, it's normalcy. You know, we're competent and we're incompetent. We have a handle on things and we don't have a handle on things. You know, we're knowledgeable and we're clueless. I mean, this is, you know, it's just because all of these different ways that we usually put it are all oversimplifications. And what it really is what it really is, which comes with, you can't make it more or less that. And so cool. But nothing is negated. Nothing is, the fact that nothing makes sense doesn't negate anything. On the contrary, it makes everything open-ended. It makes everything random access. It enables absolute possibility. You know, do the impossible, be miraculous, just, you know, do magic, because there's no way to prove that you can't, or you can, or you are, or you aren't, or you're succeeding, or you aren't succeeding, because it's weirder than that. But nothing is negated, right?
Peter, it seems that, I don't know, I'm thinking about to kind of live this. There's a tendency to say, well, this sounds a lot like acceptance and surrender. If this is unmitigated, unmanageable, it just happens. It seems like the ultimate of acceptance and surrender without doing anything.
Well, there's nothing to accept or surrender to, because if you don't accept it, it doesn't go away.
Yeah, it doesn't care.
Whether you surrender
accept
to it or
yeah.
not, it's happening.
Yeah.
It's, you know, so all of that again is approaching it from erroneously simplistic terms where it could be this or that. You could surrender or not. You could accept it or not, and it's not like that, is it?
It doesn't care.
It doesn't care.
It's just doing what it does.
Yeah, it's full service. It's full frequency. It's full bandwidth. It's like bang. It's already all of that. And it doesn't negate any of that. You can still, in the context of that, you can still feel like you're accepting and rejecting and, you know, functioning and dysfunctioning and just, or whatever, right?
The only problem comes in when I think it should be one thing or another.
Sure. And that's not even really a problem. It's just another inaccuracy. And we relate to these we're familiar with it. I mean, we relate to inaccuracies all the time, and we do it how we do it. And it doesn't solve anything or not. And la-di-da, right? Show goes on.
Perhaps a useful reminder or noticing would be to notice the spontaneity of, even when we think we are choosing something, we don't choose to choose in advance of choosing, it chooses. And so there's a spontaneity to this that allows for every mode that shows up.
Yeah.
Whether you feel powerless or powerful, like you're choosing or you have no choice.
Sure.
Or it doesn't matter.
Sure.
It's so spontaneous.
Sure.
And it arises from,
yeah.
That's where to look.
Yeah. And this point is a fundamental principle. So whatever you have that you own, that you're doing, that you claim, you have that. But you also have everything that you don't have, and everything that you don't own, and everything you don't claim. It's also here too. And it is the way it is, and it's doing what it does. So you actually have more resources, more to draw on, more possibilities, then you may be used to allowing yourself to recognize, to notice. Because again, everything comes with. You can't shut anything off. You can't turn anything off. You can't exclude anything. You can pretend to exclude things. You can sort of get thee behind me, Satan. Deny, and that's cool. You can do that, but doing that doesn't change anything. And even when you're doing that, you don't know you can't know what you're doing. I mean, how do you do that? What are you doing when you do that? What's the mechanism? It's inconceivable.
But when you say it doesn't change anything, still there is one can exist with a feeling of equanimity or with agitation.
Sure.
So you might as well choose. I mean, you're not choosing, okay, but in other words, there's a path, maybe a more spontaneous approach to things, without really just buying in or accepting that these fantasies that you have.
Sure.
There can be a more equanimical, if that's the word, you know what I mean,
Well,
approach. So
sure.
You're not living in misery.
Sure.
Or just
I
have
mean,
a feeling of
there's there's no holds barred. Anything that you can seem to be able to do, you can seem to be able to do, and that's great. If you can make choices, if you can navigate towards greater joy or greater peace or greater equanimity or greater this or greater that, if you can seem to do that, have at it. But be wary of tricking yourself by pretending you're doing that and cutting yourself off from the juice, cutting yourself off from the fullness.
You mean
But that doesn't mean that doesn't negate. Nothing is negated. The idea that this is all doing itself and it's all spontaneously occurring doesn't negate participation.
Right.
It doesn't negate, absolute intimacy of engagement and navigation and all these things. Even though you can't find what those are and you can't, analyze those or demonstrate those. But if you can exercise those things to some degree and it seems to be useful, but why not? Nothing is excluded. All possibilities are included in what this is, and vastly more than what you consider possibilities are included in what this is. Because what this is, it can't be, more things in heaven on earth than you dreamt of in your philosophy. This is that heaven and earth. This is that more things. And so whatever you're acknowledging or allowing as being possible is going to be a small subset of it's actually here.
It's like just a constant universe of exploration and experimentation.
Just like it always has been. Just like it always was. But you can be with it as that, which is very liberating, and because you have access to the fullness and you're not constrained by your own formulas, by your own, arguments of process and justifications and stuff. You can just do whatever you do and then do whatever you don't do too. What the hell? Do what you can and then do what you can't. What the hell?
My experience is if I just allow, being on the waves and letting it roll unconsciously, I get in a lot of trouble and I feel miserable. I feel for myself, when I'm conscious, I plug into the vibration through the spectrum of this wholeness.
Okay.
That's what I'm practicing.
Right. So where does the unconsciousness come from?
Being in this, thinking that my reality is in the outer world, and I am victim to that.
Okay. Is that unconsciousness or is that active imagination? And what does that even mean?
That is again, I think you said it, maybe just being at the whim of this active imagination and like maybe going to a movie and just letting that movie roll and thinking I'm a part of that movie and just unconscious, just, I'm in that movie and it's just rolling.
Can you stop the rolling? Can you stop? You can.
Oh yeah, that's the power we have. I mean, I'm going to say the power I have is I can stop the movie anytime and put my dial somewhere else.
Okay, when you put your dial somewhere else, does that stop event? I mean, you put your dial on something and,
Not for a while.
Huh?
Okay. in my feeling body, it will stop. I will start to feel different. Actually, that's part of my will as well, is when I put my dial somewhere else that, okay, I'm going to let go of struggle and, I'm going to feel joy. I'm going to start feeling joy. I'm going to, magnetize joyful feelings.
Right.
Now, maybe that will go, okay, maybe I'll start changing my whole thought forms. Maybe that is an illusion, or, that is happening. Maybe good things will start coming. When I say good things, I'm saying things that feel good. Maybe through this horror, maybe some person will come up to me and give me a hug. I'm just talking about creating our movie in life through struggle. I mean, or maybe I'll get a phone call and someone gives me a free ticket to some beautiful place.
Right.
I'm just talking
Sure.
from
But-
what could occur
Well,
through the nightmare.
sure. In the field of phenomena, or the nightmares you're calling it, is everything? Is there turbulence? Is there degrees of apparent turbulence?
In the nightmare?
Sure. And anything.
yes.
And anything. Where's the nightmare, and how's the nightmare separate from anything that's some non-nightmare?
The way I'm interpreting it.
Okay,
The
good.
dream.
But interpretation is just narration. It
It's
is what it is,
narration.
whatever you're calling it.
And
You
I
can call it
can
a horror show. You can call it a paradise.
Exactly, and I can change the way I'm looking at it.
Right.
At any time, I can go,
Sure. Okay.
oh, well, on the other hand,
Okay. But that it is in itself, which is what it is, regardless of whether you're calling it a horror show or calling it a paradise, it still is what it is.
it is what it is all the
And
time.
why does it need to be called anything? Why call it a horror show? Why call it paradise? Why call it?
Okay.
It's just weird. It's just a weird presence.
Okay. Yes.
It's-
and well, I will talk from my personal experience. I'm at a experience here on the planet of still creating the movie of life, and I'm choosing to put my dial on more uplifting experiences and opening to receive good, feeling things that feel powerful, feel beauty, good things that I want
Right.
from my desire. Now, I'm not to the point where I'm just able to not. I'm still kind of attached. I'm in this phase of choice and using what I feel is my will.
Okay. What force or principle is doing the chaos? What force or principle is doing everything? I mean, when stars are exploding, when thousands of millions of red ants are torturing and killing, fighting with millions of black ants, when Arabs are killing Jews and vice versa, what's doing all that?
It's this isness that we're talking about.
Right, the isness is doing it. And is the isness good or evil?
It is.
It's not. It is. Okay. Is that?
It is open. It has power. It
Okay.
has
Right. Yeah. Okay.
energy.
Well, what more do you need? If the goodness is open power, energy, transcendental divinity, I mean, why add choosing onto that?
Okay, from my personal experience, I've played out a lot of that misery and anger and fear and struggle and trying to be buying into the culture, and I'm just tired of it and I want something else.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great. But all of that is all it within and the isness. The isness is doing the anger and the struggle, and the isness also gives you the ability to deal with it more skillfully and intelligently, and participate with it in different ways, right?
Yes. And
So it's a zero-sum game. You
yes,
haven't.
and that's where this feeling of freedom occurs. Like if you can, as you're talking, I'm going, it's very. I feel this huge spaciousness.
Yeah. But the spaciousness is the isness is spaciousness, right?
Mhm.
The isness is all spaciousness, is all, power, as you say. we could qualify it as all goodness, but not a goodness that's different from some badness, but a goodness that is all good, right? Inclusive, absolute, positivity. And that's kind of what we got. That's kind of what the starting point is. That's kind of what is doing everything. And all the apparent badness and the turbulence is just basically a misinterpretation of this fullness, of this openness, of this freedom, right? So again, the root fact, the solution to all problems is not in some elaboration of some elaboration of some elaboration, but just getting back to the root fact of the isness itself is openness, is inclusiveness, is freedom, is spaciousness, is absolute harmony with itself. It never departs from itself. And even as it can seem to be infinitely complex and infinitely turbulent and unresolvable, it still never departs from that intrinsic fullness and spaciousness and call it joyfulness that it is, right?
Thank you, that's good.
All part of the service. Well, it's 12. We could take a little break, but I'm thinking, why don't we go on for another half hour, and then we'll take a lunch break, and we can go into town or whatever and take some time. If we took some time off now, then we'd get back together, and then it would only be 10 minutes before we'd be breaking for lunch, and so on and so forth. So anyway, the long and short of that is, okay, now what? Okay, so let's recapitulate. This is the recapitulation. What is here? That's the recapitulation. Okay, now, glad we did that.
Peter, is there anything we can say about why it presents the way it does? Radiance, in its most primal form, is infinite intelligence, infinite possibilities, infinite space, all of this. But then it presents, which is the same thing.
Well, it's not a but then. I mean, it's not like that and then this. That is the this. This is the that. And why? I mean, that's what all this is about. It's looking at itself, saying why, what, who, what, wow, who, what, how, where, when, why. That's what's the motive force of all this is. God looks at itself and is wondering what the fuck is this? What am I? And that's what this present experience is, essentially. I mean, to put it poetically and in sort of pseudo-religious terms.
So we can't, there's no, I mean, once you get into a reason, then you kind of.
Well, you can get into it. It doesn't take you away from anything. I mean, you can try and explore reasons, but good luck with that. Yeah. Because again, you'll find yourself going to partialities. And if you don't go to partialities, then the reason for this is this, which is ultimately, undeniably true, or at least the strongest hypothesis going. But you haven't gone anywhere. So this is this, and the reason for this is this, and what this is doing is this, and the way that it does it is this. Okay, cool. But all of that is the case without even starting all of that circumlocution. Just this.
And we're trying to go also with it. Is this presents? It's kind of our kind of sort of Gaia in the mind. So but it's all the same.
Sure. The way I put it, this is intrinsically radiance. It presents unstoppably and intrinsically with all of these astounding, what appears to be experiential characteristics, flavors, vibes, whatever you want to call it, right? That everything is made of, that all this color and light and sound, and I mean just all the stuff is this radiant, continual shining forth, this continual presentation of this presence intrinsically. And it's not like there's presence and then there's radiance. There's two words, but this is the presence, this is the radiance. It's never not radiant, it's never not present. And try and find anything that's not just that. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't negate or cancel out anything. You can, within that context, you can do anything that you can do. Right? I mean, nothing is negated, everything is included. But everything that is included turns out to be nothing, never departs from this that is here, the way it is here. You know, now, this may sound like an abstraction to talk about it that way, and you try and wrap your head around it that way, but you can't wrap your head around it, so it doesn't matter. This that is here is a felt actuality, and in that obviousness, in that felt presence, that's the whole shooting match.
So this experience or actuality dissolves into limitless light.
Well, it dissolves into itself. It's already the limitless light that it is dissolved into. And then here's the limitless light, and here's the dissolution. Or here's the world, and here's my sorry history. There's just another way of spinning the same thing. You never depart, you never get anywhere. You never go anywhere else than right here. It's just all spin, it's all pretense. It's all, well, I'm stuck in my life, and how do I get out of my life? Oh no, my history. I'm this neurotic person, and I'm such an arrogant asshole, and why am I so annoying, and how can I, but all of that is just a way of spin doctoring this inconceivable presence. Or I can just say, wow, infinite light. Or I can say, the biosphere enacts all of its patterns of its evolution as all of these life forms, which shows up as, this experiential field functioning within this, bioluminescent system of blah, blah, bullshit. But I still haven't departed from this. It's just more spin doctoring. And the spin doctoring doesn't add anything or take anything away. So why not just notice the fundamental fact? And then you can spin doctor all you want, but you're not actually going anywhere when you do that. You're not adding anything to anything or subtracting anything from anything. It's like children's play. Yeah, it's just children playing make-believe.
You were saying that you can't reference with reference.
Did I say that? It sounds confusing as hell.
Like, most everything that goes through my sphere of consciousness is some made up crappy crap, right?
Well, is it?
I don't know.
What is made up?
I'm working on that assumption. Actually.
What is made up crappy crap made of? Suppose it's made of thought. So everything that goes through your consciousness, let's say, is thought. Let's say in terms of the made up crappy crap. So it's thought. What is thought? What's thought made of? How's it appearing? It's just more weird informational presence that's spontaneously there.
Yeah, and then you said, but you can't reference the sort of isness through referencing.
You can't. Well, no. Actually, it's
source or something?
No. It's weirder than that. It doesn't matter how you access it, because there's nothing else to access.
Right.
You want to approach thought. Approach thought. Thought is this. You want to be lost in fantasy. Be lost in fantasy, because fantasy is this. You can't ever get away from this. And anything you're pretending to do, oh, now I'm lost in thought. Now I'm with my senses. Now I'm meditating on God. Now I'm pissed off at my relatives, for my parents for being such shitty parents. Now I'm this, now I'm that. It's all these spin doctorings, but it's all a pretense, because it's basically what? It's this here. And it never stops being this here. It never becomes more this here. And it certainly never becomes less this here. And what is this here? Well, can't say, but here it is. I call it radiant presence. Not because it is that, but because it's a really cool sounding sort of a thing to call it. It's like, wow, isn't that cool, radiant presence? But anyway, whatever it is, it's this actuality that is what it is, and is not made up of words and names, but includes as many words and names as you care to play with. So the point is, you can't access anything other than this. There's no otherness. There's no this. There's no that. There's no this that's different than some that, and there's no that that's different than some this. There's no imagination that's different than some actuality. There's no actuality that's different than some imagination. How could imagination occur if it wasn't actually there? How could it be present? How could it exist? What would it be made of?
How could imagination occur if what?
If it wasn't made out of reality, if it wasn't actual. Right? Imagination is just another one of the weird flavors that this seems to present to itself in. It presents to itself as what we think of as light, what we think of as sound, what we think of as sensation, what we think of as thought, what we think of as emotion, what we think of as weird vibes that we don't have names for, and that's like 99% of it. You know, we classify the sense fields and we think that, well, that's what my experience is made of. If you look at your experience is this vast sea of weirdness, little flickers and vibes and moods and, you know, the zings and in the midst of that floating is these little sense fields. And none of it makes any sense and you can't get to the bottom of any of it, but here it is. And it's all, none of it is any more or less this absolutely present, absolutely instantaneous, absolutely, you know, unanalyzable. You can't put it together into a single thing. You can't pull it apart into separate things. It's just not like that. It's none of the above, but it's the only thing that actually is real. And of course, being humans, we try to get a handle on it. Oh, no, but it's this and that and the other, and we're so clever and we figure things out. And even when we're doing that, it's still just this. So this is just the opening shot of our presentation this weekend. And so later on, we'll be getting into a lot more of the sort of the practical. The practical aspects of it. But anyway, so the whole point of this is really just to sort of pull the rug out from under. It's not to like leave you anywhere. It's just to point out that there's nowhere to leave you, and yet you can't ever be taken anywhere else than right here.
If you look at life as just chaos theory and things are happening and then we react to things happening, our lives can unfold in many different ways. Indra's net, you know, it's all expanding in every direction all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at it that way, and yet people do talk about destiny and talk about genetics and environmental accidents, karma. It's not really, you could say it's not really predetermined because it could go in many different directions depending on your reaction to what is happening at any given moment. So, I mean,
or it may be that it's not predetermined, it's predetermined. I mean, you're touching on a very interesting point, and we'll spend a lot of time with this later on. This is more and more of the elaboration. The information that is present as the qualities of experience tends to show up as apparent patterns, and these patterns are inconceivably, intelligently intricate, not just random gibberish. It's not like this is just like flicker, like an old-fashioned TV where it's the snow. It's not like that, is it? There's these intensely detailed patternings of the way the information shows up. You know, it shows up with these amazing apparent patterns, and these patterns have an incredibly intricate kind of apparent interrelationship to themselves, and apparently intricate functionality through apparent time as they evolve and morph and develop and come into being and go out of being and all this. So it's not like it's just a pure chaos of just noise of just like, you know, I mean, it's incredibly detailed and patterned and structured with an inconceivable intelligence.
everything affects everything else.
Well, apparently, I mean, that's one way to put it, seemingly. So it shows this intricate interrelationship of all these patternings. And yet all these patternings are nothing other than this information that's here. And it's always like that, even when it's relatively chaotic. Like say you go to sleep and it looks like, you know, it's basically kind of nothing or whatever. I mean, it's not that it's necessarily simply nothing, but the degree of apparent structure that's apparent in the deep sleep state, let's say, is with a whole different kind of a superficial quality or characteristics than the degree of order that's apparent in the waking state, for example. And yet it's not simple, again, even there it's not simple chaos. But it's different. It's different orders. And then a dream comes in, and again, it's very highly ordered and structured apparently, but it's a different kind of a structure and ordering and apparent functionality in the relationship of the patterns with each other and the way they seem to interact and the way they seem to evolve and so on and so forth. All of that, the whole Ender's net thing, a whole different characteristic than the waking state dominantly. And then there may be other, arbitrarily classifiable states that are, again, you find the same thing. But yeah, there is, this is part of what's so confusing about this is the incredible intricacy of the patterning of the information. It's not just random information. It's not just like random number generation and noise. This incredible, detail and nuance in the patterns of the information that shows up. And this is, of course, what we base all of our abstractions on, I can see these incredible patternings of seeming to see these bodies, and they're incredibly intricate, and they're incredibly structured, and the way they function, the flavors of their functionality, and the sort of characteristics they seem to embody over time, and all this, it's incredibly structured. But the very strange thing, what I want to touch on now, the very strange thing is that all of this apparent patterning, if you look at it closely, is basically unpatterned. The patterns are made out of unresolvable energy. So the patterns appear superficially to be very structured, and you look closely and you find a whole nother order of structure, and you look at another layer and you find a whole nother order. It's like, you look at me superficially and see me socially as a person that's, a human male in modern times who has a certain personality and so on and so forth, certain behavior, certain flavor, let's say. And then you look closer and you might see my cells, and all of a sudden, wow, whole lot of structure there, but it's there's a whole sort of a different readout and different implication in terms of the apparent patterning. You look closer and you might find the atoms and all, again, same thing. It's like, wow, whole nother kettle of fish. It's really structured. But when you're looking at my atoms, where did the personality go? Where did the superficial social persona of Peter Brown go? It's like, it's just not there. So what was it made of? Well, it's made of that, but it only looks like that at a certain sort of a scale of observation, at a certain level of focus. And you go to a different level of focus, it looks very, very different. Different level of focus, very, very different. And you find this phenomena, I think if you think about it, you'll reflect this is the case. And if you pursue this in the future, you'll definitely discover this is the case, I think. That things are only the way they present themselves from particular levels of focus or particular levels of observation. And at different levels of observation, they're drastically different. And so no apparent patterning is sort of absolute or is actually the way it seems to be. It's not that it's not that, but it's infinitely more than that. And in that moreness, it's also infinitely other than that. So what I seem to be on one level of observation is something very, very different than I'll seem to be on another level of observation, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on, forever. So where's me? Where's Peter Brown? Well, I'm very definitely me, right? You look at me and I'm identifiably me, and I behave and look differently than anyone else here, and you behave and look differently than anyone else here, and so on and so forth. But then if I go and try to find you, or go and try and find me, in that search, it just opens to infinity. It opens to unresolvability. It opens to, whoa, what? You don't end up any place. And there's all of these echoes of ways it seems to be at different levels of observation. And they're kind of interrelated and coherent. You look at my genetic structure, it's going to kind of reflect me in a lot of ways, but it's also going to be a whole nother thing. It's like, what? You see this sort of crystalline pattern of atoms, whatever. I'm doing this inconceivable mosaic or mandala of juxtaposition. It's like, well, that's me. But it doesn't look like me, Peter Brown, in a social situation, and yet it's me. And then you look at the atoms that's made out of, and that's me. And then you dolly back, say, we're just sort of talking objectively here, arbitrarily. You dolly back, and you look, from the moon, and you look at me, and well, what do you see? You see the whole Earth. You see the whole solar system, and well, that's what I look like at that level of observation. You know, that looks a whole lot different than me that's sitting here talking and dressed in these clothes and, you know, carrying on the way I do, right? But that's what I look like from that angle. And is there any ultimate angle? Is there any angle that's a true perspective? Is there any perspective that's what it really is? It looks different from all these perspectives, but this is the one that's the privileged perspective, the objective perspective, what it really is. And the answer is no. I mean, how weird is this? There's all of this intense patterning, intense specificity, where everything is exactly what it is and no other, and yet exactly what that is turns out to be an infinity of otherness when you look closely. And it's all of that. And that's just woo, it's like, well, that makes no sense. That's just too weird. Yeah, it's too weird. Too weird is what we got.
But with the primate mind, we can't really identify patterns. We might think we do.
Sure.
We can be drawing conclusions, but it's completely incorrect.
Yeah, totally. That's the point. All these patterns are incorrect, and yet they're all self-evidently.
We think we see them.
Yeah, they're there to the extent they're there, and you look closer and you discover, well, no, I didn't have it, and you know, and you look closer and well, I didn't have it then either, you know, and there's no bottom. It's elephants all the way down. It's not like you can finally look closer. Now I've got. Now I know what you are. You know, I just looked at you. You know, I finally found the right angle. There's no right angle. There's just these infinite possible perspectives, all of which give a different readout, all of which are true, and none of which actually come into coherence as being anything. And yet, you're you. You're very much you, and you're different and unique and different from everyone else here. And you're you, and so on and so forth. This pillow is the pillow, and this shoelace is this shoelace. It's not like any other shoelace in the world. And yet you can't find the shoelace. You can't find you. I mean, it's a very, very strange paradoxical situation that the way I put it in sort of technical terms, which may sound like an abstraction, but it's very concrete, is there's an infinite degree of specificity. There's as much specificity as you care to look for in the information you perceive. And it's all indeterminate. It's all unresolvable. It's all, what's the word? It's all an inherent uncertainty.
But Peter, if you say you look at yourself on a cellular basis or an atomic basis, molecular basis, aren't our bodies interacting with the whole environment all the time too? So that, I mean, it's not
Absolutely.
Like it's not all really part of us. It's really part of the whole.
Yeah, but it's not. There's no really. That comes with. You look for me, you find the whole world. You look for the whole world, you find me.
You're not intact. You're interacting with everything around you.
Yeah, and there's no me that's interacting with everything. There's just everything. But what is this everything really? In the last analysis, everything is this experiential field. Because there is no everything unless it's appearing within this experiential field. The universe is known to exist because it appears in this experiential field. You know, what was the world before you were born? Was there a world? I mean, it's gibberish. It's meaningless. You know, it's how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. It's like the world is worth talking about after the fact because it's appearing. And its appearing means it's appearing in this experiential field, i.e. to the sole existent entity, i.e. me. And maybe you if you exist too. That's your problem.
Question.
Yes.
How has this insight that you've shared
Mhm.
been useful in your own personal life?
Well, it's profoundly useful in every way. First of all, it's useful because it enables or reveals actuality as it actually is. And it's useful because it enables let's say perception of a feeling tone or experiential feeling tone of openness and fullness and spontaneity and completeness, which can be said to be a cessation of suffering in sort of technical spiritual terms. So it's, it's liberation from karma. I mean, if you want to, if you look at technical spiritual theory, liberation from karma is not causing karma to cease. It's a discovery that karma never existed because of the inherently transcendental nature of all structure, and inherently transcendental nature of all actuality. Or you could say an inherent, it's all Brahman, if you want to look at it from a Hindu point of view, or it's all Dharmakaya, if you want to look at it from a Buddhist point of view, and so on and so forth. But all of these different structural theories are just restatements and reiterations of approximations of the nature of this actual condition, which is as it is right here, and it's actually discoverable what it is directly. And through this discovery, one is freed from feeling erroneously entrapped in what one thinks it is that it isn't actually. In other words, all of the problems of the individual turn out to be the problems of sloppy fantasizing, sloppy inaccurate fantasizing. And when one discovers the self-verifying nature of actuality, then naturally that frees one, not by having changed anything, but by revealing very clearly and directly and self-verifyingly that I was wrong. When I thought I was this pathetic human being stuck in this horrible situation in this life, in this horrible world, this grotesque civilization, going to hell. It's not like that. It's actually not like that, without excluding that. It looks like that from certain points of view, but what's going on here is so utterly and fantastically beyond that, and that's what I am. I'm what this actually is. And of course, you are too. That's everyone is. There's nothing else going on. But the feeling tone of knowing that directly and unmediatedly is very different subjectively from the feeling tone of having a warped interpretation of it that one sort of auto-hypnotically feels stuck in.
So the awareness keeps you more present, more centered.
Yeah, not that it's more present and more centered, but
More
centering.
and more perspective. It
Yeah.
gives you more perspective.
Infinite perspective and inalienable, inextricable centering and presence, which is it's inalienable. It can't not be. The actual centering and the actual presence is actually the intrinsic condition, always has been and always will be. And any deviation from that or departure from that is a pretense of that without it being the actual fact.
One last question, or at least one last question for now.
Sure.
Have you given any thought? Have you given any thought to thought? And if you have, where did you conclude it comes from?
Well, thought's no different than anything else. It's this inconceivable transcendental, informational presence, experiential energy presence. We classify thought
without origin?
Yeah, no, everything's without origin. Or you could say everything is, the way that this intrinsically appears to itself or presents itself, but even that's too much spin doctoring. It's basically mystery. It's mysterious presence, but everything is mysterious presence, so
thought is it's not possible to know where thought comes from.
it is possible to know where it comes from, but where it comes from is not aware. Thought comes from this, just like light comes from this. Everything, being comes from this. This bootstraps itself up into existence, and it appears to itself as a smear of bandwidth of informational texture, which we humans classify as, light and sound and thought and, subtle vibes and emotion and whatever. I mean, we sort of break down this infinite bandwidth into these subcategories, and we suppose that they're different than each other, but it's all the same instantaneously present vibrational energy that I call radiance. Or it's called Shakti in Hinduism, or, Chi in some of the Chinese traditions and so on. It's all these are just words for the self-evident fact of this strange apparitional, experiential, call it energy. And it's not that it is any of those things, but all of that elaboration is just a way of referring to this strange presence, this radiant presence.
Thank you.
Sure. Why don't we break for lunch and have a lot of fun, or not? It's 12:30. Why don't we take an hour and a half for lunch? So it's a nice leisurely downtime. Go into town, whatever. Go for a walk, whatever. You have a nap. Go have a martini, whatever you like to do, and we'll reconvene somewhere around about 12:30 2. And have fun.